Yes, I'm just getting the YouTube stream recording. It seems to go a lot faster for me and more reliable if I don't just try to record or go to Facebook. But if I'm going to YouTube, then I don't know, it's worked for me every time for YouTube. Yeah, so we were talking about the website and just trying to get some feedback on what could be improved. What do we often look for on the website? What would be a nice feature to have on our website that other conference websites have? That sort of thing. Did you have some thoughts, Lori?
I just wanted to share, and it's probably just me, I just struggle navigating it. I can't always tell what's something that's clickable that takes me someplace else. And so I struggle with that. But I'm more visual, so it would help me to understand how all the pieces are laid out and the train of thought for where stuff goes. But I mean, that's probably just me.
No, that's helpful. So, because one of the things that's going on our site right now is, from when it was first developed, we had a wireframe, let's say, that was very flexible. But since it was first developed to where we are today, there's so many more features, so many extra bells and whistles that are available. And, we've tested some out, and some it was just, we have a lot more people working on our website now too. So some it's just been, ooh, this looks pretty, let's try that. And so I hadn't thought about, by adding these differently formatted pages, yes, it's pretty, but on the flip side, now the user does have to really look to see, okay, so, oh, is that clickable? It's not the same format for every page, where you would know all the menu items are on the left, and what I'm looking at in this large part, you only scroll, that's all you can do. That would be, I suppose, a really user-friendly format to follow. So that's really good. And then what type of device do you normally use, Lori, when you go to the website?
You know what? I have an iPad mini, and I have a laptop, and then I have the desktop, and now I have an iPhone. So I just go whatever's
Okay.
closest.
Okay, that's helpful. How about the rest of you guys? When you go to the conference website, what type of device do you normally use?
Desktop.
Mostly desktop.
Okay. And what are some of the, tell me, like, if there was one thing that we could just change or get rid of on the website, what do you think that would be? Or on the flip side, if there's one thing that, we might get rid of it, what's the one thing that you wouldn't want us to get rid of or change?
Most of the people that I've talked with go for the forms, and that's something we need to, really make sure that it's readily available, I think.
Yeah, go ahead, David.
I think having I like how the communications from the district superintendents are right out there front and center. And so I think that would be a good thing probably to retain, because not everybody at the local church level is always that clued into, who is my DS and what are they saying. And so I've always liked how the districts are featured right there.
Mm-hmm. Then that brings up a good question. How often at your churches, how would the person in the pews or the committee members, how would they know about the existence of the Desert Southwest Conference website? And do they need to know about it?
I think that's an ongoing educational process. I have to continually remind people that it's there. If you're having trouble finding a form, it's out there. If you need to know X, Y, or Z, it's out there. And, but I find that the ones who are, the movers and shakers within the church usually know it pretty well. The others, not so much. But that, again, is continuing education.
Mhm.
Good point, Jim.
I just found, when I was on it the other day, I found the iGive site where you can log in and go through them to different stores and whatever, and they get credit back. Didn't even know we had that.
Mm. And that's technically not really from the Desert Southwest Conference, but it is a feature that, we've highlighted on the website in maybe an article or something.
That's what, I think it was an article, yeah.
Makes sense. Okay, how about, do you ever look at something and realize as you're trying to get this content and it's outdated. This isn't even the
Yes.
latest thing. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking for candle advent lighting readings, different things to go with the resource set this month, and a lot of it when you would put it in as a search, it would come up with the older ones. You really had to search to find the current ones.
Okay. And that's another excellent train of thought. How often do you guys at your church, are you guys using, when the conference puts out some special worship services that are like different pieces pre-recorded, that your church could just use it straight away or just use a piece of it? Do you find that anytime that's offered, we use it, or is it just once in a while?
So we've just been using them once in a while, especially during this pandemic, because we have planned out our services so far ahead that by the time I get the notification that you guys have done it, it's like, oh, I already have that service planned. So yeah. And like the Sunday after Christmas, this last one, that ended up being our pastor's last Sunday because he's retiring mid-year. And so it was like, well, we can't do the conference one because then he can't do his last sermon. So we're actually going to show that one on Epiphany. I'm going to post it to all of our stuff on Epiphany because that's what our new pastor would like to do.
Perfect.
So yeah, I love it though. And I wish I just had more, like a month or 6 weeks notice of, hey, this is coming. So then I can be like, hey guys, we have the week off. Let's do that. As opposed to just a couple weeks.
Yeah, makes sense.
I think the Advent one is the first one we've used, and it was good because it kept us all on the same page. There's 3 of us that participate in the worship service. We just knew we could go on there and find what we needed. It was great.
Okay.
And we did show the conference video this past Sunday.
So did we.
Okay, that's good news. How about, let's see, there was the longest night resource, and then there's the one that Jennifer mentioned for this Sunday, for the Sunday after Christmas. So did you guys use the longest night already? Okay. There was also the lessons and carols and bells, something like that. I think that's the one that was, I don't remember. David's nodding yes. So, okay, thank you. That makes sense.
We used a format of that. I was telling Greg, we had carols by the fire, and we had a fire pit and outside service. First time we've been back together at all since March, and it was really meaningful. We were all sitting apart. We had our masks. We had the video showing on the side wall of the building, and we were sitting around the fire. So, and we did the carols and lessons. I don't know if Ed took them right from the website, but I know it was kind of the same format. It was great.
Good. And with the things that you guys get, do you need stuff set up differently? I heard you say that you wanted it earlier, like earlier notice that it's coming. But how about, so if you get, let's say 6 weeks early, we start announcing that it's coming, this is going to be available. What's the deadline for when to actually have it published?
So for what I've been telling my worship team is they have to get me the videos by the Tuesday before the Sunday. So like I'm supposed to get all the videos today for January 3rd. Do I have any of them? Not at all. But I figure if I tell them Tuesday, I usually get them by Wednesday and I can put it all together on Thursday because my office is closed on Friday. So as long as I get it before Thursday, before that Sunday, I'm good. Goodness, it's going to be a phone day today at my office.
No problem. Okay, so how about the rest of you? Would basically a week in advance be good enough? Okay. All right. Yeah, David.
I see that the longest night one was announced quite a bit in advance. I just checked the date of the post and it was November 3rd on the conference website. So that was a good long lead time for a heads up. I know it's not always possible depending on if the Spirit moves a particular leader or
Yeah.
committee or something and they want to get something done. So yeah.
Yeah.
I found it's good that communications come out about, okay, you know, we are going to have this one done by such an, I think like the one for the lessons and carols, it says we'll have this posted by December 17th. And sure enough, you know, and so then we went and got it. And it was good quality. There was one little glitch, you know, because it came in from so many different sources, all the different, that one video didn't have the audio and the video lined up. So I took that off into my own video editor and I had sliced and diced it and I relined it up. So because I was adding some other stuff to the beginning and the end anyway.
Yeah.
And so I felt like, okay, and it's good practice for me to, you know, learn my chops on my video editor.
Nice.
And we're getting another one this coming Sunday from Chicago. Our clergy candidate from within our church is in seminary in Chicago, and he's serving an internship or something at the First Methodist that's in what they call the Chicago Temple, which is an impressive tall building in downtown Chicago where the First Methodist Church is located on the first floor, and then way up in the top they have a chapel called the Sky Chapel, and they're different. Our guy Mike Wilkerson, he does like the Saturday night service, and so we just basically get all the bits and pieces of the Saturday night service, which includes like a gospel choir and handbells and all this great stuff. And so I'm just trying to make sure we've got it all, and our pastor happens to be on vacation this week. So I'll be hosting, I'll just put it out there, and I may say something at the beginning or, you know, something to intro it. But it's great so we can actually go outside if the conference doesn't have something for us. There's also Western jurisdiction resources, which is kind of cool. So, you know, you never know. Or I've heard of some churches sharing with each other some specific church to church resources. So,
and how did you find out about that Chicago Temple?
So that one was because it was our clergy candidate. I think our pastor reached out to him and said, hey, you know, I'm taking a Sunday or two off. Do you have something for it? Nice. And so it's like a guest, you know, a guest preacher, but it turned into more than just a sermon, which was nice, that they could provide us with pretty much the whole service.
Oh, thanks.
We don't like to do too much because we're worried a little bit about our consistency and our connectivity with our congregation. And so we don't want to get in the habit of dropping in a lot of third-party content. But I think in good in a carefully planned and carefully introduced quantity, that can be a good thing too.
Mhm. Okay. How about for future planning for 2021? Are there specific Sundays that you imagine, like, oh, typically our pastor goes on vacation or takes this Sunday off? Like, I imagine the Sunday after annual conference will probably have some resources available. That's my guess. I've got a terrible memory, I admit that, so I don't remember for sure. But I think that we do normally offer something like that. So
No, we
just
did this
FYI.
year.
What's that?
I know we did this year.
Okay, good. Then I'm
Also,
sort of
after
remembering.
the week after Easter is probably good too, at the end of Lent and Easter.
Easter, okay. After Christmas. And then I remember that we've had the Pentecost service, didn't we?
Yes, I like the Pentecost service. I use that, and maybe in the future, we not only Pentecost, maybe special Sundays, Thanksgiving, or uh, Christmas season. The bishop will make the sermon so that we can play it in virtually. Because some members are not familiar with the officers of the conference, uh, the bishop and district superintendents. So it's one way of knowing them.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Lori.
I was thinking of the week that all the pastors go to that retreat, the gathering.
Oh yeah, in February.
That seems to be a really stress point for them, then having to try and come back and do a sermon. And I know that time frame changes each year, but that might be a nice kind of gift to the pastors.
Yeah. Okay. And of course, we're not trying to take over any like special laity preaching or whatever. But I imagine this is a nice resource, a nice option to have, or at least the peace of mind to know if I can't get somebody to take over for me, the conference has my back. We've got this recorded service ready to go. And I heard you, David, saying about how, you'll end up taking parts of it and maybe either add stuff to it, fix things, or however. So is it helpful to have each section as a standalone video, or is it better just put the whole thing together, post that video, and I'll take out the pieces that I want?
I like choices. I'm always about having choices. So if it's not too much trouble, as it's being assembled, I don't think it's that much work for the people who are doing it to offer it in chunks and perhaps as a continuous thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Because then that meets the needs of more situations. Yeah.
Okay. And then maybe not in the video, but as separate text on the web page, have the copyright stuff, right? Yeah. Okay. And then I know even just the script for the service. How about the bulletin? I was concerned about that I figured it's not going to hurt to offer it, but when I saw that as one of the items that we were going to have available, I was worried that having a PDF of the bulletin that churches would probably need to add to it or something, but maybe not. Yeah, Jennifer.
All right. We haven't used a bulletin since all year. We stopped using it at the end of last year because we have everything up on the screen for everybody. So the extra use of the paper just became, like I said, it wasn't really necessary. So we quit using a bulletin. So that didn't affect us at all.
Nice. How do you guys do the call and response?
It's on a screen.
Oh yeah, makes sense. Okay, thanks. All right, any other thoughts about the worship services? Okay.
I do want to say that our people who watched the one from the conference loved hearing the organ because we never get to hear that. So that was they just loved singing the hymns along with the organ.
Okay, that's a good note. Okay, then for a time there, at different times, depending on what's happening in the United Methodist Church, we will have devotional series, right? Or weekly prayers. And by devotional series, I mean like little devotional videos each week for a set amount of time. I know Spiritual Formation has done an incredible job of putting together different options for churches to use, whether it's a social media graphic for each week with a question or a prayer. They've done videos, I think they've even done like actual services, whether it's to kick it off or to finish it up, leading up to General Conference. Is something like that, like for your churches, do you look for things like that from the conference, or does your church do its own thing, or at the local church level, is General Conference not such a big, huge deal as it is at the conference level?
I don't think we use anything from General Conference. It's one of those, I'm not that involved with processing, I'll say, the services that we're doing. So it's one of those, maybe I need to take more interest in what's going on with that and offer those suggestions to the team that's putting them together.
Okay.
I don't think anything has come directly from our pastor to the team saying, check these out for resources, because I have a feeling most of the people on the, I'll say, the worship team that are putting the services together don't consult either the local conference or the general conference or even the jurisdiction.
Right. So this would be a little bit different. It's not about 4 worship services.
Right.
This is stuff that you could put out in your weekly email blast to your congregation, or maybe it's something, a monthly article that goes into the newsletter in the few months leading up to General Conference. It could be stuff on social media. The purpose typically of the items that are devotional-ish leading up to General Conference, part of it is, pray for the work that is going to be done. But also a significant part, I think, is an educational piece for the people at the local church level to understand how the United Methodist structure works and, why they should care about what this General Conference is all about. In a sense, it almost could lead towards leadership development. Somebody might find out about the resolutions that are coming up, or some, historical thing that's happening at General Conference, or that might happen. And that might inspire them to get more involved in, whether it's just to learn more about their church or to get involved in making a difference and getting other people to, hey, let's all XYZ, whatever it is that they might do. So it is a good piece to consider, to at least share amongst the leadership to see how can we use this? Does this make sense for us? Or maybe the church itself would want to create its own awareness and devotional and inspirational pieces as we go towards General Conference, Jurisdictional Conference. They're all significant events in the life of the United Methodist Church, similar to how Easter and Christmas would be sort of to the individual. It's something that's coming way down the road, and you kind of need to do some spiritual preparation as we near that milestone. So it's certainly not something that's required. I can enjoy Christmas just as much and know what it's all about without doing preparation in advance of it, but it's a lot more fruitful and much more significant for me to do that preparation. That makes sense. All right. So how about at other times? We did have some devotionals that went out towards the beginning of the year. I think it was partly because of the scary times of COVID and trying to provide a sense of calm and hope. Do you guys remember any of those? They came out, I want to say it started in February or March. Yeah, Jim does. It was like with the bishop, the district superintendents, Dave McPherson, the director of New and Vital Faith, did one. Can't remember if anybody else did. But if we were to do something like that again, a weekly video devotional, and each video was maybe between a minute to, I don't think any of them were 3 minutes long, but they were between 1 and 3 minutes. And it was just a video devotional. It was not part of a worship service. Is that something that, raise your hand if you think that that's something that your church could use? If there's no agenda for it. Yeah. Okay. And would you share it in social media? Raise your hand for social media. Would you, send it as an email, like the link to the video? Yeah, Jennifer. Okay. All right. So, and when we do things like that, the other question that I wonder about is sometimes we try to do some prep language for you for the local church. And it's never intended to be like, this is what you have to share in your email and then post these videos on social media. It's just an idea, that you could copy and paste or copy and edit it so it makes sense for your community. Are things like that helpful, or is it like, no, we just want the resources, let us do what we want to do with them? I wish I had an example of the last time we did that. Go ahead, Jennifer.
I think for our church anyway, because we pastor is part-time and it's 2 of us lay leaders that are doing a lot of the prep work. Any resources we have are great. We can use them and tweak them as we need them. But
Okay.
it really helped going through Advent having this series. So if it's something we can send out in our newsletter or an email, it's great.
Okay. All right. So how about you guys? I've been asking a lot of questions so that I can have some data to go off of as we start thinking about the website redesign and content strategy. What are the needs of our local church? And I'll also take these questions to our Communications Commission. And we're lucky enough that we get to work with gifted website developer people, and they'll come up with questions and help us identify, we'll have a survey that I might send out to you guys to help fine tune some of that feedback about the website redesign. So we're going to get information from all sorts of different areas, also from the bishop and district superintendents, to find out what is it that they need to be able to provide, and is the website the right place for that. So it's not all on you guys. No pressure there. And we might come back to conversations about conference needs, but what are some of the things you guys are like? I find when I worked at the local church towards the end of the year, I started to, even if it was just decluttering my office, maybe I do some prep work on church bulletins for the months ahead. Are there things like that that you guys are thinking about right now to either let go of, revise, refine?
I was
in
going to ask
communications?
Jennifer a question.
Yeah.
If anybody else can answer. Jennifer said that they stopped printing bulletins the first of the year. Was there any pushback from people saying, I miss having a bulletin in my hand? Or, how do you get the information out? Because I think a lot of people put a lot of faith in computers. And I know there are several people in my congregation who do not have computers, do not want to have a computer, do not have a smartphone, they have flip phones, whatever. how do you communicate to those people things? And there's no more hard copy newsletter. It's a weekly email. And some people are saying, well, I didn't get the email, or I didn't see this. Where do you find it? Sadly, sometimes it might wind up in their, I'll say, trash basket of the spam file or whatever. But I think we put too much reliance on electronic communication and less on the hard copy that people can hold in their hands. And especially with aging congregations, as we all seem to have, like I said, there are a lot of people who do not rely on any way, shape, or form of electronic communication. How do we communicate to them? Do we need to identify them and then say, hey, this is what it is? And we do have our services on the screen, but some people choose, they'd rather read it out of something they're holding in their hand.
We have a very small congregation. Our membership, I think, was 20 at the end of the year. So that is usually the most we ever have in a service. No one complained about not having a bulletin, but what I did do is I send out a newsletter, both by email, by email to the ones I know who read it, and by snail mail to the ones who I know don't have access.
Okay.
Some both. So that's how we keep them abreast. I put the prayer request right out of the screen from the video into the newsletter, because usually I'm doing both. So that's how we've been doing it, and it's been working. We've been keeping there's 2 people mainly that don't have any access, and then a couple other that don't really like to use it. So we know who they are. We've identified them. Because we're such a small group, it's easier.
Right.
But yeah, that's what we've been doing.
Jennifer, that's about what we're doing too. We want to make sure though that as Greg has mentioned, that the people who are not connected keep in the loop. And we have a very dedicated team doing that they, just like what you were saying, they either email it to them. If they don't have email, they take them a paper copy, this type of thing, or mail it to them in some cases. But yeah, you have to keep everybody involved.
I want to pop in here real quick on that. Ever since the pandemic started, we've gone all digital. And at the very beginning of it, I had a group of ladies who called people who we didn't have email addresses for to get them email addresses, because I'm surprised at how many of my older congregation do use the internet and email and all that. And then they kind of double checked and said, do you want continuous phone calls, so on and so forth. At my church, now when I send out mailings here at St. Paul's, I'm sending out over 450 envelopes. So it's been really hard for me when I can't technically have volunteers here to stuff envelopes to do any sort of monthly or weekly or anything mailing. So we haven't. Now we're changing that. And we sent out an Advent letter that just got sent out last week. And I actually had 4 volunteers come in and take letters, labels, and envelopes, and they took them home, stuffed them, and then brought them back. And I took them over to the post office. But it's been really difficult trying to figure out who actually uses the internet and who doesn't, because I can't get people to actually tell me if they do it or not. And if somebody has an idea of how I can get people to tell me if they want a paper versus an email and actually tell me that, I would love it. Because I've tried when we were in person before the pandemic, BC, before Corona, that's how I call it. In the middle of services and the announcements, I'm saying, hey, mark if you need something mailed, if you want all email stuff. And I think I've gotten about 20 people who are like, yeah, I'll do just email. And I'm like, really? I have to still send out 430 some odd envelopes? I don't believe I have to do that. But we are going to be starting a monthly newsletter because we have a few people who have reached out and said, we miss knowing what's going on. But we also do have a very good team of ladies who make phone calls and are checking in on people all the time and keeping them in the loop. So I'm very lucky that didn't get added onto my plate as well.
Yeah, I think we're a little bit, I don't know. I mean, we've got a large group, but we don't mail out to anybody anymore, anything. And if anything, it's, I don't know, maybe I know that we need to do a better job with reaching our people that are not, that don't have a device or don't have access to the internet. And in our case, I mean, it's not helpful for you guys because you don't have a middleman like we do. I mean, well, sort of. You've got your church ladies that are calling people or volunteers that are coming in and sealing envelopes. So yeah, I guess, we're doing what we can, but it would be a good idea to pose that question to your leadership team to see, get other people thinking about it. How can we make this happen? Because on the one hand, get your finances together, figure out how much does it cost, time, printing, postage. Well, yeah, printing and postage are different things. The supplies, how much does that cost to send that out to people? And, how can we solve this? Because that is really a communication channel issue that shouldn't be on one person to figure out. There's a lot of brilliant people.
Shouldn't be on one person, but every time it's brought up to our leadership, it turns into, well, Megan can do it. Megan can do it. Megan can do it. Oh yeah, Megan can totally edit this crazy video and make it do this. Megan can totally send out 500 letters all by herself.
Megan is amazing.
She's a rock star.
We've had to cut, ever since I started, we've cut our staff by a lot because of budget constraints. And so I've taken over 4 positions, I think. And so when they brought up the monthly newsletter and mailing it out, I went, fine, I will print it. I can't be responsible for getting volunteers. I can't be responsible for stuffing envelopes. I can't. I don't have the time to do it. And that's the big thing, is I'm finally standing up for myself as communicator and being like, somebody else has to own up to this because you don't pay me enough.
Yep. I hear you, Megan. Go ahead, Jennifer.
Oh, ours is purely volunteer again because it's a small group. So basically I'm doing it, as Megan said. But I'm retired and I'm home. And so for me, it's easy to do. We also, Ed has sent me copies of his sermons. So that was the other thing that we send out, is to the ones who can't hear it, is written copies. And we've gotten feedback that they really, really appreciate that. So it's working for us.
Can I ask a quick question of all you guys? So we have a new pastor starting on Friday officially, and he wants to look at having me record the services and or just the sermons onto a DVD and mailing that out every week. Are any churches doing anything like that? I'd like to get some feedback on that, because my grandmother, who doesn't do internet or anything, is over at Christ Church, and they did that for about a month. And she was like, I don't need it. I do my own thing on Sunday morning. And if I go over to your mother's house, then I watch the service online, but I'm good. I don't need it. Has anybody else been doing anything like that? Because I'd like to have some sort of, I look at this going, this is a lot of work for, I don't think, a lot of return. There's not a lot of return on investment on this for me. So do any of you guys know of any churches doing anything similar and how it's going?
We did at BC, as you called it. I don't think we are doing it now. It is available. Services are archived on our website, so they can do that. As far as doing a DVD of it, a lot of it went to shut-ins, but some people have told me, no, I don't watch it live. Don't have the capability. I don't own a DVD player, so they choose not to get it. It is another cost involved, and not only with the DVDs, we do have a DVD machine that can copy like 10 at a time, and I think we've stopped doing that. I don't know of anybody in the office who's doing that. We don't have anybody technically in the office 5 days a week. I mean, it's just closed. So I can't really help you, Megan, sorry.
That's okay. I'll take any feedback I can get. Apparently, he wants to know how much it will cost, and he's got somebody who's going to pay for it. And I'm like, that's cool. I just don't think anybody really wants it. So just thought I'd check.
Megan, even though there's a lot of people that don't have email access, a lot of people have smart TVs and they have the ability to watch a YouTube video, which could be a sermon, you know, if there's some way that somebody can show them like how to get to it. I had to do that with my my ex-mother-in-law with an iPad because during the coronavirus, she was pretty isolated and she had an old, almost a rotary phone. So I got her an iPad, but I had to sit with her and show her how to even touch the screen correctly. You know, so we're talking about people that are older that don't get a lot of that stuff, but a lot of them have newer TVs.
Mm-hmm.
So that may be a different pathway.
We had looked at getting my grandmother a Amazon Echo Show, so that all she'd have to do is just tell it to do something, and then she was like, "No, I think I'm good. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it." But yeah, I mean, right now all of our videos are up on YouTube and Facebook, and on Vimeo as well. I actually just live streamed a recording through Vimeo on Sunday morning, which was interesting, but it worked. I'll take it. And apparently with Vimeo Premium, you can also set up a Roku and an Amazon Prime Video channel. So I'm looking into that too. So then all they have to do is go to the church's channel,
Right.
which is interesting. But that can wait until spring when I don't have end of year stuff to do.
I think Megan brings out a good point, though. You have to constantly look at your cost benefit, is what it boils down to. I mean, yes, we can do wonderful things technology wise, but you know, if you're going to boil it down that you only have 3 people using it and it takes 6 people to produce, no.
Yes, I've had to be the Debbie Downer on a lot of big things that the leadership has wanted to do, up to and including the parking lot worship services. We were getting ready to start doing that, and my grandmother found out that there was a rash of COVID at another church that was linked up to all the people putting together the worship service. And I went, I'm good. We'll just continue to do this until everybody's vaccinated. I'm okay with this.
That gets back to education though too, because I know we took our governing board meetings online, you know, during the summer sometime. And there were a number of people resisting using Zoom, and we had to work with them one-on-one to make sure that even if they're accessing via their tablet or their smartphone, that they were able to get on. But there again, I think Lori brought out a good point that takes that one-on-one touch to show somebody how to use it. And you know, I don't always have the time, but we were really happy. We did a Zoom communion service for Christmas Eve, and we had several people join that hadn't been able to join before, or were resisting, I guess I should say. And that worked out very well.
Go ahead, Jennifer.
I don't know how many of you know Mary Lou Adame. She was a pastor, she retired. Good friend of mine. So she's in Texas now, so much for retirement. She's got a church, but it's almost all Hispanic and older people. So they actually do a telephone service, and all they have to do is call in to this number, and it works for her congregation. So they're all on the phone. They can participate, they're together, but there's not really any technology other than making a phone call. So that's, I was supposed to get it so I could listen in and see how it went, but she said that's what's working for them.
I floated that idea with a few of our older congregation that don't do anything. And I pretty much was told, no, I don't want to sit on a phone for that long. I was like, okay, that's valid. I figure if the people that we would be reaching with it don't want it, then we'll get something else. But yeah, it's something that I did look into for a little bit. And definitely if it works for congregations, it's awesome.
In some smaller communities, radio stations are another option, because I know that for I think several years, Patagonia UMC has had a relationship with a local station, and all they needed to do was deliver an audio recording of their service to the station, and then it would get broadcast on Sundays. So I don't think they've ever tried to do it like live or anything, but that's an option because radio is very accessible to even to people who don't necessarily have computers. That wouldn't necessarily work in a major metropolitan area, but in a small town with just a few radio stations, that might be an option.
Okay, so how about one of the things that I wanted to find out about you about get some feedback from you guys is on the frequency of our conference newsletters. We typically send them on the first Tuesday of every month. Occasionally, for whatever reasons, we might be a day late, or there might be a special feature. And we used to send them out on a weekly basis. But now with the monthly basis, it typically includes some message from the bishop and messages from the district superintendents and the different lay leaders, including our conference lay leader, Lori. There'll be different feature pieces like that. And if we were to switch it back to weekly, it doesn't mean that we wouldn't have features like that. It just means maybe those pieces would still come out once a month, but on a weekly basis, it would be whatever's new, whatever's happening right now. So you don't have to wait until that first Tuesday of the upcoming month to get that information that was published in the second week of this month. So I'm wondering, is that helpful? At one point when we moved it to once a month, it was because we had a group that had been thinking about it together. Like, what do we need to do to do a better job of reaching our churches? And one of the things that we were identifying with was that feeling of, geez, getting those annoying mailers in the mail of stuff that I didn't ask for, but somebody thinks it's really important that I should get this. And it felt like junk mail, really. And so we were worried that maybe conference news was being received similar to junk mail. Like, geez, it's just way too much stuff. But I don't know if some of those thoughts were part of how we used to do things even way before that, where it was to be out on a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, just whenever there were little notes, DSC notes that would go out on a specific subject. Plus there was the conference, the weekly e-news or e-blast, I can't remember, weekly digest. And then we had our monthly newsletter as well. And then we also had weekly bulletins. So I'm not sure if part of that feeling of all this junk mail was from those long lasting, campaigns that we had, or if it was just from the weekly digest. Because in addition to the conference's weekly digest, you maybe would have also received a weekly email from your district. And there might have still been special items that went out from the bishop's office or from conference committees, something out of the ordinary. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, some years ago, there was some survey from the Conference Commission on Race and, was it COSRA or was it Religion and Race? I can't remember, but anyway, every church got it, and there was special email notices for, and I think even printed letters that were mailed to pastors and different people in the church to bring awareness to, hey, the survey's coming up. Make sure you fill it out. And the survey went out. Did you fill it out? It's not too late to fill out the survey. Turn it in on this day. So even though we had it sort of on a schedule, there were still oddball things that would come out, and chances are there could be some oddball things that would come out, but not to the whole subscriber list of the weekly digest. So I'm wondering, I know for me, if we're talking about cost analysis, it's much easier for me to send out the weekly digest because it's automated. We put it on the website, and then once a week, MailChimp checks to see, oh, is there any new content? Oh, there are 3 new pieces. Okay, let's send that out. And I don't have to do any formatting, nothing, don't think about it. It just gets sent out automatically. Versus the monthly newsletter does take some thinking about, like, gosh, we've got now 20 pieces that need to go out, and I'm only allowed to send out 10 items. I might have to write a new article to group 3 or 4 of these items so that that gets listed. And it's a whole, it takes about a day to really go through and check back to see of all the things that were tagged for the newsletter. Oh, darn, 2 of them are now outdated. So let's take those out. Yeah, it's a to-do, but there could be a different way. It doesn't have to be the weekly newsletter. My question to you guys is, does it ever, like, do you think it's worth a try to go back to weekly news, or has it been very helpful for you guys to get your conference news on a monthly basis?
How about every other week, or say the first and third Tuesday of the month? I mean, I think that would work for, it doesn't flood the inbox, but I think twice a month, you might get by with doing some of those updates and say, well, I've got another one coming in 2 weeks. It doesn't need to go this one.
I like that idea. The one main one once a month with the articles from everybody, and then like the second one maybe it's just an update with news and whatever.
Yeah.
The less I have to read, because like you said, it becomes junk mail after a while.
But and the further spaced out they are, then the more that does, like you say, that does collect, and then that makes it a little overwhelming. And that's why you're saying you're having a limit to maybe 10 items. But if you did, sometimes a compromise like that might work, because it might reach that magic amount of, okay, not too much to digest, maybe just right. So maybe that's a good idea.
Lori.
Christina, I struggle when it feels like some of the stuff is forced, almost like, oh, there's something coming out. So each of the DSs feels like they are compelled to have to write something. And I feel it forced a lot of times, as opposed to, the once a month or whatever, where they really have something in their heart to share, as opposed to, I've got filler to do,
Well,
Yeah.
Laurie, how about if you go 2 DSs, 1 issue, so to speak, and the other 2 the next issue?
I like that.
Well, and do they have to have something in every issue? What if
And-
they only wrote when they're inspired? Because, like, let's say we went weekly, I certainly would not even be able to get the district superintendents or the bishop to write something on a weekly basis for conference news. So that's not even a possibility, but let's say that it was. I mean, yeah, they're wonderfully full of wisdom and so inspirational, but there's other things that we would need to hear about or hear from other people.
Yeah,
Anyway.
but it almost feels like one person writes something, then all the other DSs go, oh, I need to write something too. And it's like, just don't do that. I don't know how we deal with that. That's kind of sensitive.
Yeah. Well, so and the way we were doing it for a while is that we'd have themes for the month. And so if they were going to write something, we'd want them to be on theme. And these themes ideally are designed to work you towards that greater communication goal, similar to getting ready for Christmas, the Sundays leading up to Christmas, or Advent. Same type of thing, preparing for something greater. It could be because we have somewhat of a glimpse of what annual conference might be about, or it could be just because of whatever it is that's going on in the world. Maybe it's something that we're learning that, wow, we really need to bring awareness to this, like the race issues. And so each month they're asked to write about some specific thing. That's not the case every month. We're not always that well organized or all aligned. There might be different things that have to happen in each district at that time. Charge conference certainly is a good example of how this is important stuff too, and we need to focus on this. So it doesn't always work out that way, but sometimes that's the intention of the themes, and I'm not sure how successful it's been. I admit I'm not a gatekeeper or anything to tell the bishop or the district superintendents, yeah, your content is right on the money, or it's okay, or whatever. Can't imagine that I would be here if I was doing that. Okay, well, this has been very helpful, guys. I hope that you keep thinking about not only just like how I'm asking you guys about the content, and it sounds like you already are doing it, not only to find out where your audience prefers to find their information, how they need to get it, but that it's a constant question with your leadership as well. Like, are we reaching our people? If not, how can we get there? What is it that we know that we're kind of setting aside? Like, admittedly, at the conference, I know I can't really right now, like Megan, I can't do it all. I can't go in and create print publications. Thankfully, we've had volunteers or conference committee people doing things like creating these worship videos. So it's not been a one-person show. Anyway, let's see here. David has a note. Go ahead, David. Oof,
Yeah, one of our regulars is not here today because he is infected with COVID, and that's Bob Cutlip. And there have been other clergy and other people associated with the churches. So I know it's gone on so long that it's almost, in the back of our minds, but it needs to also be in the front of our minds, and we need to be praying for these people and praying that everyone else stay as safe as possible.
That is a great item to go out with. We're 3 minutes past our cutoff time. Sorry, guys. David, if you would close us out with a prayer.
Certainly.
Please, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Certainly. Dear Lord, be with us all throughout the coming weeks as we transition into a new year, hopefully a new year full of new possibilities and hope. We know that there are solutions coming, vaccinations coming, lots of hopeful things that can happen in this new year, but help us to be mindful of those around us who are struggling right now, struggling either with illness, whether it be COVID or not, and also struggling sometimes just with employment or to make ends meet, or what to do in order to continue to be the church. Help us to be creative and connected and loving and forgiving and mindful that you are always with us and that you will give us what we need. In your name we pray. Amen.